This is In Depth. We are facing an election with historic dynamics, and now the impact of the President of the United States testing positive for COVID-19. And to think the election is just about a month away. Joining me tonight are longtime guest political analyst Dr. Robert Dian. He's an associate professor of political science at the University of Evansville. Dr. Dian, this has been an election in turmoil, mail-in ballots, the president saying the votes could be wrought with fraud. Would he concede? The debate this week and the president and first lady now testing positive for COVID. We hope all people, of course, with COVID recover, including President Trump and First Lady Melania. But with all that being said, this entire election process this year, do you have words to describe it from your take?
This is a year for the record books. I don't know that anybody wants to relive 2020. It's been one thing after another, and this is just, today's developments are the very definition of an October surprise. Nothing like this has happened in American political history. Nothing. I hope we never have to live through something like this again.
And the president thrives, of course, on those campaign rallies. Not being able to do so, at least within the next couple of weeks, is that going to hurt his campaign effort?
Well, of course, it's a large operation, and he's got surrogates, and he's got the vice president, who's the picture of health, and he's got paid advertising, so the campaign's not going to stop. But the backdrop of this is really very worrisome. We've got the oldest president ever in the history of America. He's not in the best physical shape, and he's got this virus, which is a very serious affair. It's no small thing that the president is staying in a hospital as we speak, and that's something that's got to be worrisome for Americans. So surely the campaign will proceed, but the kind of things that only the president can do, the rallies, the fundraisers, he's going to be out of commission for a little while now. I know they're saying at the moment that he'll be in the hospital for a couple days, and that has to make you feel good in a way that he's going to get the best care. But the kind of time that's going to be needed to figure out what his real symptoms are and what the situation is, man, that's going to take another couple weeks. And he doesn't have a couple weeks because we're 32 days out from a major presidential election.
Well, those debates, first that debate commission that handled the Cleveland confrontation said there would be changes made following Tuesday night's free-for-all, but now could face-to-face debates be out the door?
I have to think that in the case of the vice president and the nominee for the Democrats, Kamala Harris, that's going to happen next Wednesday, just for continuity's sake, and they're both in good health. I think they're going to negotiate a greater distance and maybe a little more care within the room among those who are attending than they did in Cleveland. But the big question is, what's going to happen October 15th? If the president, if the best guidance is for him to have a 2-week quarantine, well, the next debate falls within that. So we're either going to have to postpone it, which really seems like a difficult thing to do, or as you suggest, maybe the president will do it remotely. We just lived through 2 Zoom conventions, which was something new under the sun. So I guess it's possible, but the whole notion of this is just really thrown everything up in the air. It's unclear where we're going to be or what the president's health will be, God forbid, in the next week or two.
And with that being said, will this increase Vice President Pence's role in the campaign, considering the 25th Amendment? If President Trump needs to transfer power to the vice president if he's unable to make decisions while he is convalescing?
Well, let's take a moment just to remember the good work of the late Senator Birch Bayh, who's responsible for drafting and helping to shepherd through the 25th Amendment. At least now we have a clear succession and a clear plan. I have to imagine the president is going to be loath to give up power or to acknowledge that he's incapable of discharging his duties. But if his sickness gets serious, and I hope it doesn't, then we will have to probably have to trigger for the second time in American history the notion of having the vice president step forward. And yes, you better believe Mike Pence is going to have greater scrutiny than ever. And let's be honest, Joe Biden is an elderly gentleman as well. So people are going to take a long look at Kamala Harris next week on Wednesday.
And Dr. Dine, speaking of Joe Biden, the dynamics of how both of these candidates, President Trump and Joe Biden, especially after the debate in Cleveland, Joe Biden is going to be walking a tightrope too in his campaigning now, considering that the president is hospitalized.
Right. He said the right thing today when he got out early and said, I want the president to recover and his wife, and he pulled every negative ad. It's very hard to campaign under these conditions, so he's going to have to dial it back as well. He won't be able to run the kind of messaging perhaps that might have helped him finish out his case. And of course, people are voting already all across America. As we speak, it seems like Joe Biden is ahead in the polls. So freezing the election in place and having the country focus on the coronavirus above all else would seem to give a modest advantage to Joe Biden because he's ahead as we speak. But that's not the way you want to win. Nobody wants to wish this on anybody. It's a really, as I say, a worrisome development. I remember when Ronald Reagan was shot and the whole country just held its breath. It's a very unnerving thing for the president to be at risk of a serious health condition like this. And everybody, I think, wants him to recover soon and completely.
And to think that this is happening in this most bizarre year of 2020 and in the late stages of a presidential election. Dr. Robert Dine, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll be talking to you. Take care and stay healthy.